Okay, well, I've just gotten back from doing a drive, and I didn't realize that my device, I can't say the word because that will stop it, was not recording. So, lesson learned, don't ever say the G word near the G device. Um, anyways, since basically that entire drive no longer exists, I'm going to do another quick drive, just a quick introductory video to FSD 10.3. Just a quick bit of information. This is a 2018 Model 3 long-range rear-wheel drive. I started testing FSD back in mid 10.2, and I've now been driving 10.3 for a day and change. So my experience firsthand has been with FSD 10.2, and so I'll be making comparisons to that. I've watched a ton of videos of other FSD testers in the past, but something that I've realized is that the situations around here seem to be very different from in other places, and my test results for somewhat similar situations here tend to be quite different than the test results that we see elsewhere. So I'm going to do just a quick drive. We're going to do a quick run over to the beach and loop back. And I will talk about some of the issues that I've had with FSD 10.3, etc., etc. So, let's see. FSD isn't really meant to be used in parking lots yet. Yeah, it's not coming up. That's fine. Okay, so we can now activate FSD. That's fine. Excellent, okay. Let's make a little right turn here. So a change in 10.3. The creeping logic has changed, or not the creeping logic, but rather the creeping speed has changed. There's some new logic, I suppose. Okay, that's fine. So it really should go. It should have started going a while ago, but so a couple things there. One is that confidence in making turns seems lower in 10.3 than it did in 10.2. Not having video of 10.2 personally to compare it against, just sort of the butt dyno tells me that turns don't feel quite as confident in 10.3. And then the boost. Now the boost I thought in 10.3 was a little bit better, but you'll have noticed my grunt as we accelerated through that turn there. The boost is still sometimes a little aggressive. It does seem better in 10.3, but it's still a little bit much sometimes. Okay, this is fine. The speed limit, for some unknown reason, becomes 20 here. That's fine, I'm not going to fight it. This is a left turn onto Park Street. For those who are not familiar with Park Street, this is an absolutely insane road. Now this is not an unprotected left. Almost basically all of my tests for left turns onto Park Street have been a block over on 9th Avenue, or sorry, 5th Avenue. I'm currently on 9th. And it's unprotected over there, and we're very close to this bend here. And I'll do this test later on so we can kind of get a benchmark for how 10.3 does here over there. But not today. I'm going to keep today quite short. But anyways, what happens, this is a bend, and people tend to go quite quickly around that bend. That was not a great turn. That was quite janky. And what I was seeing yesterday during my testing on 10.3 was that it would just go, regardless of traffic. Now this is not ideal. Okay, so I don't know how that looks on camera, but it's a little scary in person. What it really needs to do, it needs to get a little bit better at figuring out what the appropriate speed around that turns like that are. What a human would do is slow down, do the turn, accelerate through the turn. What FSD tends to do, in my experience, is slow down in the turn, which is not particularly comfortable or natural or efficient. So I would label that as both a safety change and also just a general optimization for rider comfort. We've got a right turn here. This has been, it's had no problems making this right turn historically. We do have somebody with a bicycle at the crosswalk on the other side of the road, so depending on the timing here. Okay, so it's actually, I'm a little conflicted on that. Okay, so a lot going on there. As a human, I would have made that turn because he was way over there. There's no reason to wait, so that's fine. Now that turn itself was not particularly elegant. It is quite a sharp turn, but there's really not a whole lot of reason for it to be so janky. Okay, we're just randomly slowing down here. I'm pressing the accelerator. I'm not quite sure what it's doing. We are in a situation where the sun is getting low, and it could be causing some issues for the cameras. We are slowing down quite randomly and quite a lot. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a problem, it's just not ideal. Okay, we're slowing down again. Let's see how it does. Okay, so some things that I've seen FSD do, even with pedestrians that have a barrier on the right, it will kind of dart to the left, which obviously is not necessary behavior since they're on the other side of a barrier. But in that case, it handled that just fine. Too fast. Like I'm some kind of maniac or something. Okay, so we've got just a sort of jog to the right over here. In the previous drive that I did, that wasn't recorded, there was actually somebody crossing the road here, and it did nice. It slowed down for the bicyclist that was crossing the road, and it could handle that quite nicely. In that case, that was a very simple scenario, so of course I would expect it to do well there. Now this is a four-way stop, and there's never any traffic on either side of this four-way. And you'll see that it's being quite cautious here. That's a thing that should be optimized. I'd like to see that sort of thing addressed. That's a thing that I've just sort of observed with 10.3 so far, is that it tends to feel much more cautious making turns. The creeping seems a little bit quicker, not much quicker, but it like creeps and then waits forever before it decides to go. See, like, that's okay. Like that's an okay turn, but it still took just a little bit too long. Fortunately, there's not a whole lot of traffic out here right now, so I'm not like pissing anybody off. That's an important thing. I try to make sure that I'm not being an impediment for other road users. It's important that we test this, but if it's doing something that it really shouldn't do, whether it's a safety thing or not, we really need to make sure that we give that feedback. I neglected to hit the feedback button there, so that is a miss on my part. But it's important that we provide feedback. Now this is fine, actually. So I have the FSD profile on aggressive. I suspect that lane change is partly a function of having aggressive enabled. That little jerk to the right, things like that it does are very disconcerting. I understand why it did it. That doesn't mean that it's okay that it does it. It'd be nice to see that kind of behavior get addressed soon. And just in general, I'd like to see steering adjustments made by the car be smoothed out. It tends to make very jerky wheel movements that are sometimes quite alarming. Especially when making turns. But also just like randomly driving down the road, it will jerk the wheel. Sometimes I can tell why. Like in that case, there was some barrels in the road, and it doesn't like barrels. It doesn't like cones either. It has an irrational fear of both. It would be nice to see that get tuned a little bit better. I don't know if perhaps that just requires greater context, because sometimes you want to be cautious of barriers and cones, but like those barriers and cones, they're fine. They're fine, car. Relax. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and cancel, and I'm going to go to the next step. Okay. Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. Okay. So I don't know how clear that was on video, but it sometimes will abort a lane change when the line becomes solid. So far with 10.3, it seems that this behavior has stopped, though I haven't tested enough to be certain of that. That was definitely a thing with 10.2 that was really alarming. When it would start to make a lane change, come across the solid line, and abort the lane change, it would just swerve all over the place. It was very uncomfortable, very unpleasant. So hopefully that's a thing that's actually been fixed in 10.3, and it isn't just okay, I don't know why it's slowing down here. Give it feedback. So I did use the accelerator. It's kind of unclear whether or not Tesla looks at accelerator input in a similar way that they look at disengagements, insofar as they're aware that an adjustment has been made. So just to make sure that Tesla gets the feedback, I'm just going to hit the button. I'm going to intervene with the accelerator, but I'm also going to hit the button. right turn. Historically, this right turn has been okay. Not very smooth, but okay. Okay. So that sort of jerkiness is not ideal. I should have put the turn signal on as well before we dove into the turning lane. This is not ideal behavior either. Stopping short of the stop line, there's really no justification for that. Okay, it is a red, but we're clear to go in red, and it is clear all around us, so that is fine. I have in the past had to sort of help it along through that turn. In that case, I didn't. But that is not ideal behavior. It was sort of borderline an inconvenience for the people behind me. But it moved quickly enough that I wasn't too worried. Okay, so I think I got a little spooked by that car in front of us. Interesting. Okay, it actually, you know what? That was good. So it should have started to back off a little bit earlier. It didn't freak out, which is important. I'm glad that it didn't freak out.